Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain, and it's time once again to discuss the latest season of Power Rangers. With 4 episodes under our belts, we now have a lot more information to work with in terms of properly gauging the season so far. And what does that information tell us? Well, let's discuss. Spoiler warning now, so if you haven't yet caught up to the 4th episode, you've been warned. The first thing to address is that the pilot episode is still not a good episode. That's not to say that it was bad, far from it, but it set itself up in such a lackluster way that there were a lot more questions than answers. There were several missed opportunities, the characters came off incredibly flat relative to what we're used to in these shows, and more damning than anything else, it gave off the impression that creativity and innovation were bad things, especially since the first villain this new team fought was not very new at all. That wouldn't be as much of a talking point if this were mid-season, but episode 1 is where you separate yourself, and the pilot here just didn't do that very well. But, like I said, there are 4 episodes now, and that makes an analysis video a lot more viable than a video centering around initial thoughts. And that leads us to the question of the day: is Ninja Steel improving? To answer that, let's break down the next 3 episodes. In episode 2, Calvin and Haley are formally introduced and are eventually granted their powers, and I will say that introducing a pair of Rangers that are already in a relationship is an interesting idea. We're used to romantic relationships either developing or being teased at in Ranger seasons, so this presents a new dynamic to work with. This also presents Ninja Steel with the unique challenge of giving these 2 characters enough chemistry to justify making them a couple to begin with. Neither of them have had too much focus to this point, but from what I've seen of them so far, I don't have any reason to suspect that it couldn't work out and make both characters more genuine in the process, because you can beat up all the bad guys you want, but Rangers are people first, and who they are will always be more valuable than what they morph into. Now, let's talk story structure. The second episode has an end reveal that is a legitimate unforeseen twist regarding Madame Opius possessing the Gold Ninja Star. This move should end up adding a lot of intrigue as to the goings on in the world of reality TV for aliens, and depending on how they connect and unveil all the elements involved, including Brody's still MIA brother Aiden, we could have something very interesting set up for future episodes. And I'll take a more serialized, most episodes actually mean something approach over the more singular episodic approach any day of the week. And when we get to episode 4, we get another subtle hint as to what role Madame Odious might actually be playing in the grander scheme of things, as she clearly has a ton of influence on the so-called boss. This is good storytelling, and I'm hopeful that the payoff justifies the suspense. And speaking more generally on structure, these episodes have a lot of creative teleplay working for them, not just with the Zord battles, but with the variety of power sets and potential points of development on display. Also in episode 4, Preston develops real magical ability due to the Ninja Steel recognizing his love for magic. That's a very interesting mechanic, because the next question becomes, what unique powers will the others eventually develop given that same logic? The possibilities are limitless, and not just in terms of unique fight choreography, but also with character development. And speaking of which, let's discuss the most vital aspect of the show, because no Ranger season survives without good characters, regardless of what the premise or the powers happen to be. And the characters are improving from their episode 1 introductions. Sarah seems to have a lot more life about her, Preston is starting to come into his own, but only he and Brody have had any focus episodes so far, so we'll see. Calvin and Haley have potential, as I've touched on, but much to my surprise and delight, Brody is actually bringing it all together. This is where episode 3 comes in, a fairly straightforward tale about trusting your team and not over-relying on technology to solve your problems. It's kind of interesting how a trained ninja would be relying so much on technology in the first place, and then you remember, he lived in space for 10 years. Brody struck me as a pretty flippant character in episode 1, but 4 episodes in, his subtle oddities seem to make a lot more sense. He doesn't act like a normal human in several respects because, well, he isn't normal, and to the show's credit, they've managed to show that in ways that don't overplay either part of his upbringing. He just kind of does things and says things and expresses himself in ways that are just a little bit off or even relatively reckless, but those actions seem genuine because of his peculiar past. I don't yet know if that makes him an ideal leader, but it does make him a hell of a lot better than this guy. But the point I'm trying to make here is that he's a different Ranger for better and worse, and if Ninja Steel can keep developing him in important ways, then he stands a good chance to be at least as good as Mac, who also had an interesting backstory that worked well into Operation Overdrive. So, not surprisingly, it didn't take me too long to warm up to the new team and see them more for their potential and strengths rather than their faults. And once more focus episodes come rolling in, the team as a whole and the individuals that make it up will really start to take form. And actually knowing the characters, what motivates them, unique aspects and traits about them, and how they'll have changed from premiere to finale is the best thing a season can do. Something that Dino Charge mostly corrected that the season right behind it mostly got wrong. So here's hoping that Ninja Steel can turn quality character arcs into a real trend again. And lastly, with all that having been said, yes, Ninja Steel is improving. It's starting to understand what makes Power Rangers such a valuable franchise for the avid fans, myself obviously included. It's starting to find a good balance between quality storytelling and the zanier aspects that are in there just for fun. It doesn't need to be perfect, but as fans, we need to at least be counted on to hold every season to a certain level of quality, because for one thing, that's what real fans do, and more importantly, it'll keep us firmly away from the worst thing a season can be, which is lazy. There'll be bumps on the road, a few forgettable episodes, even the best seasons have them, but right now, I'm optimistic that Ninja Steel can be a good season. Now, there's still a long way to go before that can be said with any definitiveness, but right now, things are looking up. As always, let me know what you think of the season so far, and if it can continue trending upwards. And of course, thanks for watching.